Steven Universe would be described by the average viewer as a show about aliens, sci-fi, and the crazy drama that surrounds those elements. But the truth is that the show only masquerades as that. In reality, the show itself is actually about one thing: family. And no, I don't mean that in the hokey way that all of our connections in life are just one big network of family like you could say about just about any show. Instead, I mean that the writers sat down and planned out an entire series meant to deal with different family dynamics. We're going to break them down for you, but first, I'm going to remind you guys to check out our new channel, Geek Galaxy, a spin-off where we talk about all things geeky that don't quite fit in with the cartoon theme of Cartoon Universe. We have a review of the decline of the Sonic franchise, a video breaking down why so many anime copy Naruto, and next week we'll have a video about whether or not Sailor Moon really is a feminist role model. I'll leave a link in the comments below, so go check it out and don't forget to subscribe. Now, every single character in Steven Universe has a vastly different dynamic from the others on the show, and those differences aren't just cosmetic, but rather an attempt from the writers to do some level of commentary on these different types of families. Steven's own life is very indicative of that. The pilot presents itself as being about a boy who is being raised by his 3 hippie aunts, who took responsibility for him because his mother passed away. While the temple is very neat and tidy because of Pearl in the actual show, the pilot shows it the way you would probably imagine the home of 3 single sisters who are taking care of their nephew. A bit of a mess, with attempts to be productive and helpful strewn about the house. In the actual show, the dynamic is a little different, but the heart of it is still the same. Steven is the extra kid thrown into these 3 spinsters' lives, and they do their best to take care of him while still focusing on their own lives that they were living before he entered theirs. Steven, of course, also has a father, and like with many fathers these days, he doesn't live in the household. What is interesting about Greg is that he's presented as essentially a loser. He has no home of his own and lives in his van. He works at a car wash, he sleeps until late in the day, and even his attempts at art are presented as rather cheesy and bad in the beginning of the series, though of course that does change later on. Despite this, he is ultimately the best parent in Steven's life. While he may not get it right, it mostly comes from wanting to indulge Steven in things that Greg can't fully understand. He wouldn't let Steven help the gems if he was fully human, but because Steven is part gem, he isn't sure where to draw the line, or if it's even his place to restrict him at all. This is a positive example of how a father can still be a father even if he doesn't live with the child. Greg's decisions aren't motivated by his own interests, they're motivated by wanting to be close to Steven and do what's best for him, even if he can't live with him, and even if he can't always make the right decisions. The main emotional plot thread, of course, is about Steven's relationship with his own mother, and by the end of the series, that escalates to being about his mother's relationship with the Diamonds, which are also mothers to his mother. The fact that Steven's father is the good parent, even if distant, and that the mother figures are the ultimate villains of the show is a rather interesting subversion. It's no secret that the show embraces social justice ideas and philosophies, which on the more extreme end tend to glorify mothers and condemn fathers, but the show treats fatherhood, and especially single fatherhood, not just with respect, but with some sense of reverence. The Fryman family, for instance, is just a single dad trying to do his best by his sons. Then of course there is the Pizza family, which is also missing a mother, but also has Nanafwa to help raise the kids. This doesn't mean that the fathers are treated like they are perfect, however, as there are still deadbeat dads that make their way through Beach City, like Marty, and even the good fathers still butt heads with their children and don't always get it right. Despite focusing so much on these more newly emerging or accepted family dynamics, the show does not use this as a reason to bash the nuclear family. The point of the show is that all of these family dynamics have merit, and that ultimately the kids are going to end up the way they are because of who they are intrinsically, not because of their parents or how they are raised. Lars comes from a nuclear family, and for 4 seasons was considered to be the human equivalent of a villain in the show. He wasn't just a bully, he got bad grades and even treated people he cared about terribly, such as Sadie. This isn't because of how he was raised, however. When we finally meet Lars's parents, they're actually as nice as can be, and all they want is what is best for him, to do good in school and to be nice for others. Lars was ultimately a bad person not because of his roots, but because that was simply who he was at the end of the day, though, like with any person, he had the potential to grow. Through him, we can see that one family dynamic isn't better than any other. They are trying to put representation out for different family dynamics on the screen and show that they are all valid while leaning into these new ideas and making sure not to demonize old ones. The only thing they do demonize is whether or not you are a good parent. The diamonds, for instance, represent abusive parents, and they have all sorts of issues. Pink Diamond was born into a life where she was never truly allowed to be who she wanted to be because of that, and yet she was never considered worthy enough to be what the diamonds expected of her either. Yellow Diamond was the stern disciplinarian that punished Pink, locking her away anytime she did something bad as opposed to working through what the issue really was. Then with Blue Diamond, we had emotional manipulation told with the perfect metaphor. It is not uncommon in these types of households for one parent, particularly a mother, to get very emotional because of their child's behavior and try to use their own sadness to make their children feel bad. Blue Diamond shows this perfectly with her power to literally make other people cry as long as she's crying herself. Children don't want to see their parents upset, particularly their mothers, and oftentimes a mother can use her own tears as a weapon to punish the child. Then of course you have the mother of all mothers, White Diamond. From the moment we first see her, we can understand her dynamic as a parent perfectly. After learning that Pink Diamond has done something insane, White Diamond simply just smiles, dismisses Steven, and sends him to Pink Diamond's room before he can even get a word in. She wants to pretend like everything is fine and happy so she can trick herself into being happy. She is so desperate for everyone to pretend like everything is fine that she has the power to literally control their every movement if she needs to. And it isn't just about other people. One really interesting subtle detail they put into her character was the focus on trying to look beautiful. She appears very glamorous, of course, but she is made up in such a way that she appears like an aging woman who is trying to compensate by dolling herself up. If you think I'm reaching, just look at her room. It's designed to reflect the light that she gives off, which in turn makes her seem like she's glowing and hides any possible imperfections she has. She hasn't left her robotic head for thousands of years, and part of that has to be that it was designed to make her look more beautiful than she actually is. Seeing her here with the white glows hides her imperfections, but when we get a close look at her, she's actually terrifying, and her head has a very spooky skull shape. This wasn't just used at one dramatic moment to make her look scary in the climax either, as even after she leaves her room and is essentially a good guy, she still has this scary skull shape to her head. At the end of the series, the Diamonds of course accept Steven for what he essentially is, their grandchild, and the transformation we see in their characters are really interesting. As grandparents, they were sort of relics from a different time, the conservative types who were supposed to remind you of grandparents who didn't accept things like LGBT people, practically destroying their family over the issues with it. But like many people, even you, might have experienced with their own grandparents, they soften up in their old age. They still have their biases that they can't quite let go of, like White Diamond referring to lower life forms, and all of them being uncomfortable with the off-colors. But ultimately, they give in to the new ideas because they just want to have their grandkids in their lives and be happy together, becoming doting and in many ways overindulging. It's led to some really interesting moments in the show, if not questionable, but it is an honestly kind of sweet way of talking about these relationships with conservative grandparents who lighten up. And it's a reminder that they as a family weren't wrong because of their actual family dynamic. They weren't any different than Steven's family on Earth after all, just 3 gems raising a kid. What was different about them wasn't the way their family was set up, but the way they treated one another. In the end, the way we treat each other in our families is what is important, because even if you get it wrong at first, you can grow and change and do your best to make it better. That's all I have for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think of this video. Don't forget to check out our new channel, and I'll see you next time.